Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Foltz Fitness Podcast. I'm joined by Lily, as always.
Hey, guys.
Today, we're going to be doing a full Q&A episode. We posted on Instagram asking for some questions, and we had some questions roll in. First, if you haven't already, please leave us a rating and review on the podcast. It can really help us out, so we'd really appreciate if you did that on whatever platform you are listening to us on. And before we get into the episode, do you have any words of encouragement for our listeners today?
Ooh, words of encouragement.
Maybe they're working on something with school, or they're trying to work on their degree, or working towards a fitness goal.
My biggest message would be find your purpose. Everybody has a reason that they're doing something, and I think that our work is more valued and more easily accomplished if we have a purpose or a reason to do what we're doing. So my piece of advice is kind of find your why.
That's a great piece of advice. I know we're working towards our goals, and we just want to encourage you, and we are hoping that you are working towards yours as well. So we're going to dive into this Q&A, and we're going to start with a question that I get most frequently following these 100-mile races or long efforts that I do, and it is, why 100 miles? And sometimes it's hard to come up with an answer for people when they ask this question, and I think it kind of goes back on to what you just talked about, and finding a purpose and a why. Because ultimately, if you don't have that purpose or why, you're probably not going to make it for 100 miles. So it's very important to have something else that's driving you outside of, just wanting to accomplish a goal.
What would you say your why is?
I think it changes. For Leadville, it was, doing it for those who can't. We did this Project 100. We collected donations for Live Strong. That was my entry into the race, was through a charity. So we were able to raise money. And in that process, we allowed the people who made donations to honor somebody with their donation. So we had a handful of names that were honored throughout the process. And I kind of just thought about them throughout the day, thought about my grandpa, Don Foltz Sr., who was taken by cancer and kind of sparked this whole Project 100 idea. So just thinking about him and, doing it for those people who wish they could, I think that was one of the biggest things that got me through Leadville especially. But it changes throughout the course of these races. And, when you're running 100 miles, you got a long time to think about that why.
Absolutely. So moving into the next question, we kind of left the last episode on a bit of a cliffhanger. So what are some of your upcoming goals or upcoming races? Let's start there.
Yes. So if you follow us on Instagram, you might have already seen this, or if you're on my Strava, but I signed up first we have the Columbus Marathon, where I'm running the Columbus Marathon on October 19th, and you're running the Columbus Half.
I sure am.
So it should be a fun day there. But I got the itch to run another 100 miler after Leadville, and it didn't take long for me to find one to sign up for. And we are running the Tunnel Hill 100, which is on November the 8th. It is in Vienna, Illinois, and we are going for a sub 24-hour finish. It is a very flat and fast course. It's all on crushed gravel / some paved roads, and it's known to be very, very fast. So we're going with the goal of running a fast time.
Awesome. Well, I'm excited about that. What about some of your upcoming goals? Do you have anything outside of that you're still working on yet this year?
I think a big goal that we are working on kind of collectively, and we just kind of discussed before the podcast, is keeping this podcast going. We've launched it. We launched it last year around this time after my first 100. We've kind of been off and on with it, and I think we're making a commitment to stick to an upload schedule and just try to grow our community here. So that's another big focus. I have a few more goals and things in the works that are fitness related for next year. I won't announce those yet, but we got some really cool projects and things coming up in 2026 that I'm really excited about.
Awesome. I look forward to 2026. It should be a great year.
It's going to be awesome. It's going to be filled with change and new things. And
very busy.
We are going to a bike store on Saturday, so I'll leave you with that. And no, it's not an Ironman.
Not yet. The next question changes topics drastically or dramatically. Who was your favorite college teammate and why?
So, for those of you who don't know, I played college golf for 5 years at the University of Findlay, and this question came from a former teammate, obviously. But ultimately, I don't pick favorites, so I do not have a favorite teammate. I enjoyed all 5 years playing with the majority of the guys. I enjoyed the company of all of them. We were all very close. There was never a teammate we had on the team that we didn't get along with, and you were there for a lot of it, and you saw the connection that we kind of all had together.
Yeah, you guys were truly all best friends, and I love that you guys were all so close.
Seems like that was a long time ago, but it really wasn't that long ago.
It wasn't. Time is weird. Anyway, moving into the next kind of category here, dieting. So how does your diet change throughout training?
This is actually a really good question because my diet definitely fluctuates depending on my training load for the week. So there was some differences throughout 100-mile prep for Leadville. And ultimately, I try to stick to a whole food diet. You and I both, we like to eat clean and just make sure we're eating whole foods. If it didn't come from the ground or have a mother, we're probably not going to eat it on most days. That's kind of the rule we live by. And it's definitely paid off for us because we feel really good. We recover well. And when you're fueling with whole foods, you just ultimately feel better and have more energy.
Yeah, so kind of elaborating off of that a little bit to give you an example, tonight specifically, we had a pasta made from scratch, accompanied with some steaks. So very simple, very clean. The worst ingredient in there would probably be the butter and cream to make the sauce, but most of the nights we'll have some sort of a protein, whether it's chicken breast or ground beef or ground turkey, and we'll pair it with plain rice or some seasoned potatoes.
That's definitely our staples, and our pasta is our favorite dish to make right now. It's so good. What's it actually called? Do you remember?
Creamy basil pasta.
It's very good. We enjoy this a lot. I almost always stick to the same lunch meal. I think I've eaten the same thing for lunch for like 2.5 years now.
Oh, literally.
And it's literally rice, red pepper, spinach, and chicken breast. Every once in a while, I'll change it up and do beef, but chicken is more cost effective for making 5 meals every week. So I usually stick to that. But as far as dieting, changing throughout training, I'm basically always hitting 1 pound or 1 gram per pound of body weight of protein. That never changes. So I'm always hovering around 170 to 180 grams of protein. And most days I'm a little bit higher than that. And then the only thing that really changes is carbs. So if I know I have a big training week coming up, I'm obviously going to add in carbs during that training week to fuel my workouts. I'm taking in more carbs specifically around the workout. So that looks completely different depending on the volume and intensity in training that week. And it's something that has always fluctuated throughout my running journey.
Side question off of this one. What is your favorite meal that we make?
Oh, it's by far the pasta. It's by far the pasta. We love that. It's a staple in our weekly rotation, and we have it every week, and we look forward to that every single week. But another meal I really like that's very simple is my breakfast meal, and I tell you all the time that the meal I most look forward to is breakfast. and it's very simple. I just do over easy eggs, get the yolk so it's just barely runny, and put it on top of some sourdough, and it is so good. Sprinkle a little sea salt on top, and you're in business. So love that. Love those 2 meals. It's a staple, and yeah, that's pretty much what my diet looks like throughout training. If you take away anything from that question, it's to make sure you fuel your workouts and around your workouts, because that's when the carbs are most necessary, and you're just going to perform better during your workouts.
Yeah. I think my takeaway from that is just kind of trying and finding what you like and what works well for your bodies. For everybody, nutritionally, some meals have more importance than others. So I think that's another thing to kind of reflect upon your own lifestyle as well. But moving on, what supplements are you currently taking?
Supplements for me have not changed much over the last couple of years. So I'll start with the capsules I take. I take Bare Performance Nutrition. I take all their capsules. So I take a multivitamin, I take an omega-3 supplement, and I take a joint support supplement. Those are staples that I take every day. And I also take BPN's creatine. I take a scoop of creatine every day, which is 5 grams, pretty standard. I think it's a very important supplement to keep in your rotation, not just for the performance benefits, but it's also been studied and known to have cognitive benefits with memory and things like that. So I think it's a very important supplement, and all athletes and really anyone in particular can take creatine and notice a difference. Mm-hmm. I also take electrolytes every day. We have taken a variety of electrolytes. Mm-hmm. I'm currently using BPNs. We're going to look into getting some scratch in our next feed order. So always take a scoop of electrolytes daily. That's a non-negotiable. I usually mix it with my creatine, and it's just an easy way to get them both in. And I generally take it around about 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon before my gym sessions. So like to get those in every day. And then on top of that, it's just adding in carb mix and more electrolytes around my training. I like to make sure I'm getting sodium and carbohydrates in before every run. And in the morning, every night before my morning run, I'll mix up my carb drink with electrolytes, and I'll have it set out with my clothes for the morning. So I'll slug that, and then I'm out the door after probably about 15, 20 minutes after I take that. So those are pretty much the only supplements I'm taking. We do use some whey protein powder every now and then we like to make overnight oats or like yogurt parfait bowls, and we'll use whey protein powder for that, but it's not something we use every day. What supplements are you currently taking right now?
The only one that I could think of right off the top of my head would be a fiber supplement, because gut health is important. I believe I take a prebiotic pretty regularly.
The fifth thing I want to discuss is training faster than marathon pace.
And
now I'm going to take a pretty deep dive into this, because this is something that I think was the difference maker for me in this marathon and this race performance. I never really trained that much faster than marathon pace in my first marathon build.
Yeah.
And I definitely think it was a mistake on my part.
So
I did a lot of running in that first marathon build for the Glass City Marathon at marathon pace. But I never really dabbled with going much faster than that.
I haven't really thought about this.
And I would think that just doing it in this prep
and clean
made
air
me so much more prepared
you get
for
when
those
you're
later
running
miles
trails
in the marathon than
I
I was
love
at Toledo.
Like when we went to Leadville,
so
just
you
having
can incorporate
that fresh, clean
mile repeats at 30 to 40 seconds faster than marathon
I don't know
pace.
If it quite has a smell.
And holding that pace for moderate distances
that's
can be
what
a
I
game
enjoy the
changer
most.
when it comes to
I don't
endurance.
really
So this is one way that I incorporated that faster running into my plan.
So
and
we
it was
just stick to
definitely a big difference on
whatever
those speed workout days.
Forest air
I was doing
like,
a
that would be
lot
the
more
best for me.
half-mile repeats at very fast paces, and I was doing some mile repeats at, like I said, 30 to 40 seconds faster
a bakery
than marathon pace. And they are hard workouts to do. I'm not saying that these are easy to do, and
bakery smells on your run.
They can be taxing, but man, the difference on race day late in the race was just crazy. My legs were so much stronger, so much more conditioned to hit
my goal
get those carbs in late in the race.
Next time I will. This next one is a valid topic to bring up, but
this question was slightly modified from its original state.
It was modified, but it's a valid question, and it has to do with bodily function and bodily excursion throughout races. So, do you have to poop during these longer races, and how do you go about navigating that?
Yeah, almost every 100-miler. Yeah, both of my 100-milers, I've had to poop during the race. I think Leadville, I did twice. I think just twice. Not counting before the race, obviously, but during the race twice. And luckily, I was at aid station, so I was able to use the Porta-John, and I didn't have to do a trail poop. I have had to do trail poops in the past, specifically at Mohican this past year. I was at like mile 42, 43, and it just instantly hit me, and there's no way I was making it to the aid station. So, yes, you do have to go during these races, especially when you're doing a high-carb fueling strategy. So I'm trying to get in around 100 grams of carbs per hour because my body just performs well at that. And when you're taking in that many calories and that many carbs, it's going to be a little bit harder on your stomach. So definitely will be having to use the restroom during these longer efforts. Another thing is you want to monitor your urine. You want to make sure that you're going pee enough, you're urinating enough, and you want to kind of keep an eye on the color, because if it's a really dark yellow, that can be a sign of potentially oncoming rhabdo and things like that, and just severe dehydration, which is a no-no in these races. So it's important to make sure that you're urinating enough and that the color is appropriate. You don't really want it to be completely clear either. You want it to kind of just be a light yellow, and that's kind of the sweet spot when you're in these races doing these long efforts.
So now that the race is over, what would you change about your Leadville prep?
This is a really good question, because hindsight is always 20/20. And going into this race, I had a pretty good strategy in place for my training based off all the research I've done on the race. I knew there was a lot of climbing. I knew there was a lot of flat sections, so I knew it was going to be important to be a good uphill hiker. And it was also going to be beneficial to be a good runner on flats. So I knew that this race was at elevation. Obviously, the lowest point of the course is 9,200 feet, and we get up to over 12,000 when we climb Hope Pass. So I knew that was going to be a huge obstacle with a thinner air, and it turned out to pretty much kind of derail the last half of my race because I just couldn't breathe that well. But that was really nothing I could control other than if I had time to go out, 3 weeks in advance. But the biggest thing I would change in my training is adding in more uphill running and climbing. I felt like I did a decent job of getting that in. I was using the Stairmaster, was doing some uphill treadmill, but I don't think my volume of climbing training was high enough. I think I needed to do more sustained efforts climbing, more longer sessions on the uphill treadmill, both running and hiking at a fast clip. So I think if I had to do one thing different, it would most definitely be adding in more intense climbing, more long sessions of climbing.
Nice. For someone who is just beginning their fitness journey, kind of doesn't run, really just starting from scratch, how would you recommend that they start their fitness journey?
This is a question that could go a few different ways. I think most people get into fitness because they want to lose weight, and that's kind of the entry into it. That was my entry into running, is just wanting to drop some weight off and be a little bit healthier. And if that's the case, that's great. However, I'm actually going to recommend you start in the weight room and not run. I think weight training has bigger benefits, especially early on. So I would most definitely do your weight training. And if you do want to include running, that's great too. It's just a bonus. I would do, if I was starting out now and I wanted to work out, say 5 days a week, I would do 3 days in the gym, 2 days running. That's how I would structure it. I would do maybe a push, pull, legs day. So push day being chest, shoulders, and triceps, any pushing movements. Pull day being any pull movements. So you're looking at back and biceps. Mm-hmm. And then legs, obviously all things legs. So that's how I would break it up. You can also throw in your core training on any 3 of those days. I like to train my core with my legs. I've always done it that way. I mean, you could do it any way you want, but I like to do it on leg day. And then just throw in some walking and running to start. You don't have to do super intense running workouts just on those other 2 days. Just throw in some jogging and kind of get yourself going that way. If 5 days isn't enough, drop it down to, or 5 days is too many to start, drop it down to 4. Like, make it work for you, because if it's not working in your schedule, you're not going to stick to it.
I most definitely agree with that. My piece of advice would be, if you're starting to run or trying to run, it can be very difficult and mentally taxing. So my piece of advice would be walk, run as much as you can, and slowly increase that run time to be longer and longer and longer. And then start to focus on your speed. We all have to start somewhere. So I think, coming from a slow runner myself, I appreciate those that are sharing their story and their times publicly through social media, because I feel welcomed and encouraged to try myself. And it makes it feel more achievable.
As the saying goes, comparison is the thief of joy. So if you're following a lot of fitness influencers and athletes, they're most likely posting fast times. And that's not, you can't compare your day 1 to their day 1,000. Like, it's just not, that's not relevant. That's not even anything you should consider. So it's important to pay attention to yourself and not get caught up in what other people are doing, because you'll never be fulfilled if you do that.
Agreed. Moving on, what does a typical training day look like for you? Or a training week, I should say. How in the world do you fit it all in?
So I'm not training an insane amount. When people do these Ironman triathlons and things like that, they can get up to like 20 plus hours of training a week. For Leadville, I think I got up to close to 15, maybe. I don't know if I even quite got that high, but I pretty much structured every week the same. And I always do my runs in the morning. I'm a morning runner. So I get up early and I get my run in. And then 2 days a week, I was doing strength training. So I was doing 1 day of upper body, 1 day lower body and core. And it wasn't always on the same days. I would just fit it in based on feel and if I had bigger workouts coming up, because I don't want to go into my bigger workouts having sore and fatigued legs, because that kind of defeats the purpose. And I would do those 2 strength sessions 2 days a week after work in the evening at the gym. I'm a member at the YMCA. And the other 2 days, I would be doing uphill treadmill / Stairmaster. It's the Stairmaster, not the Stair Stepper. So 2 days a week, I was doing uphill treadmill. 1 to 2 days a week, I was doing the Stairmaster. And as the race got closer, I started to fizzle out the Stairmaster and stick to the uphill treadmill, just because I thought the mechanics of running and moving at a faster pace uphill on the treadmill was better for me than necessarily doing steps. But that's kind of how I would structure my full training schedule. Now, as far as workouts go, I would do one speed workout a week, generally on the track throughout Leadville Prep. You and I would do track Tuesdays pretty much every week. Yep. And that's where I got my high intensity session. And then on either Friday or Saturday, it depended on what we had on the schedule and what life was throwing at us, is when I would do my long runs. And most likely later in the prep, I was doing a back-to-back long run. And sometimes I didn't always do, like if I had 24 miles, I didn't necessarily do a 24-mile run. There was some days where I would do 10 in the morning and then 14 in the evening. We did Armand, who paced me during Leadville, him and I did an overnight long run, and I had ran 10 miles in that morning, and I did 14 overnight with him. So I don't think it's necessary to do full long runs. If you have to break them up, that's fine. I do think there is some benefit to doing those long runs unbroken and full, just to get used to the time on feet, the stress on your joints, things like that. But ultimately, you can break it up however it fits your schedule, as long as you're getting that volume in.
Awesome. Excuse me. With all of the training, what is your favorite training day? Which is your favorite out of what you just discussed?
Oh, I just love training. It's a great way to see self-improvement and just clear my head and get my mind off things. And my favorite day is definitely the long run days. I love the long run, and it's always been my favorite since I started my running journey. So if you hear any squeaking in the background, it's our dog. He found his toy. So ignore that. But yeah, I'd say my most favorite day is the long run day for sure. So I do enjoy our Track Tuesdays because it's our time together, and we get to train a little bit together, even though we're running at slightly different paces. So it's fun to do that and spend that time Tuesday mornings with you. So hopefully during this prep for Tunnel Hill, we can get back to the Track Tuesdays.
I would love that. That would be so fun. And I know some people would be like, well, how is it fun because you're not even running at the same pace? Just each other's presence brings each other so much joy. And I don't know, there's something so motivating about pushing each other and seeing each other do hard things. Even when it would be so easy and so comfy to just stay in bed the rest of the morning. But I have learned that that's a part of the challenge.
To add on to that, I don't care who you're with, or it doesn't matter who it is, but you always go a little bit harder when somebody else is there. Doesn't matter if they're running with you, watching you. I think the natural human tendency is to run harder and push yourself more when there's somebody else with you. And I think having somebody to run with, having somebody to share these workouts with can be huge in getting better and seeing yourself run faster and hitting faster times.
I 100% agree with that. So moving on to the next question that I just tried to ask, with all of the training that goes into these races, do you make any sacrifices?
You 100% make sacrifices, and I think you make a sacrifice no matter what if you're pursuing a goal that is very hard. And I always go back to a quote that my college golf coach said, and it is that if sacrifice is about giving up something you love for something you love or want more. So if there's something you really want to go after, there's something on your heart that you really want to chase, then you have to know that you're going to have to give up some things you love if you want to, reach that new high or reach that goal. So I think it's important to realize that no matter what goal it is that you're setting out to do, if it's a difficult one, you're going to have to give up some things. And, I give up really the biggest thing is time, because it takes a lot of time to train for these races. It takes time away from Lily, time away from the house. And I think it's important on that note to have somebody that supports you in your efforts. Lily's the biggest supporter that I have. She understands what it takes to complete races like this, and she's always there to push me and pull the best out of me, even when I'm not around all the time. And she definitely can feel that at times, especially in the afternoons when I'm doing double sessions. But at the end of the day, you're going to have to give up something if you want to pursue or if you want to achieve something great, and no matter what field it is. So I think it's important to realize that before you dive in. And ultimately, if the sacrifices are too big, then maybe it's not the right time for you to pursue that goal.
I think that was really well said. What has been the most challenging part about changing your lifestyle or joining this kind of ultra world? What has been the most challenging part about this?
The most challenging part has to be just putting yourself out there and in uncomfortable situations, because when I know when I did my first race, I was super nervous. I didn't know what to expect. I had no clue, what I was going to feel at mile 24. My first race I ever did was a trail marathon, and I did some long training runs, but at the end of the day, you don't know what to expect. You don't know what the race environment's like. You've never ran with a bunch of people before, and learning to navigate all that is kind of scary at first. And the more you do it, the more comfortable you get with it. But I think just putting yourself out there and trying something completely new was the hardest part for me. And then, when I realized after that first race that I really enjoyed racing, specifically on trails, and I knew that I had some bigger goals I wanted to achieve, I just got more comfortable. And I think taking that first step and signing up and even having the courage to train for a marathon or especially an ultra, like that just takes a lot of courage. And I respect anybody that's on the start line of any race.
I was just going to add to that as well. I think the biggest challenge that I've seen is just kind of overcoming the adversity and kind of proving to yourself more than others that you're more capable than you think you are. You have a very strong mind. We all have very strong minds, and the ability to control it is so much more powerful than people like to admit. For sure.
You are, I forget how the saying goes, you're more capable than you think you are, and you can do more than you think you can. It's 100% true. And I don't think you can really tap into this unless you put yourself in uncomfortable situations on purpose. And it's the only way to grow, because you don't grow when you're comfortable. And 95%, maybe even more, of the population lives a comfortable lifestyle. And I was that person for a long time. And I never want to go back there, because I like waking up. I like chasing new things, chasing new goals. And I want to push myself every day to see how good I can be. I'll probably never be elite, but I love self-improvement. I love putting myself in these situations, because in these 100-milers, I can prove to myself who I think I am. And that's enough for me to get out of these races.
Absolutely. I just looked up a quote because I couldn't think of it. But it is, when you're uncomfortable, that's when you learn something new about yourself. And I think that's exactly what you have just said. Straightforward. I encourage everybody listening to this podcast to try something uncomfortable, whether that's going on a walk, an extra long walk, signing up for your first 5K, your first half, your first marathon. Try something that you think is not possible and see what you're capable of.
Yeah, I think that you hit the nail on the head there. So we just want to encourage you to put yourself, like Lily said, in an uncomfortable situation. Try something new. Don't be scared to go out there and put yourself out there, because you never know what it's going to bring to your life. You never know what you're going to find out about yourself. You may find that you're super good at what you tried. This doesn't have to be running either. This can be anything. It can be a new job, a move, school, go back to school. If you've graduated high school and have been thinking about doing, going to college, and it's been 3-4 years, don't be afraid to go back to college and get your degree. Just put yourself out there, and ultimately you have to do what your heart wants to do. And the only person that knows what your heart wants to do is you.
Absolutely. I think that's very well said. That kind of wraps up this episode. I want to thank you all for listening. Be sure to follow us on social media at Foltz Fitness. We are on Instagram, YouTube, And I think that
definitely head over to the Foltz Fitness YouTube channel because we have some cool stuff already on there, some race documentaries, and we have the Leadville documentary in the works. It should be available within the next couple weeks is my goal. So that film will be coming out here shortly, and you won't want to miss that one. So we got some pretty cool things tied into that film, and I can't wait for you guys to see our race journey. Like we mentioned before, if you haven't given us a rating or a review, please do that. It helps us out immensely. And we just are super happy that you tuned into another episode, and we'll be looking forward to seeing you in the next one. So we hope you all have a great week, and we will see you next week.
See ya.